Revelation chapter 7. Revelation chapter 7, we find our text, motivated by the throne. There are a lot of things that motivate us. A lot of things that motivate us. Some things motivate us to be angry. Some things motivate us to be happy. Some things motivate us to go to work. Probably a paycheck is at the top of that list. But there are all kinds of motivations and things why people do what they do. Some people can be bought, and they do what they do for money. Some people, my grandmother used to talk about a woman being crazy about a man. And on the other side, sometimes there's men crazy about a woman. Matter of fact, I believe that it was one of the songwriters who said that he would stand out in the rain when he loves a woman. The things that people will do. Motivation primarily has something to do with all of our actions. Now, there are some people who would classify that motivation different ways. Some people would say that our motivation is what we think of as ontological, that it comes from the very source of our knowledge and our thinking. There are some who would say that it is intrinsic, others would say it's extrinsic. B.F. Skinner would say that it's behavioral. And so a lot of us have these things that we do, but all of it has to do with a motivation. There's something that wakes you up in the morning, something that causes you to drive that little car down the road, something that causes you to speak the way that you speak. There is a motivation for us. Sometimes our motivations are very mixed up, because I hear some people will say, well, I can have this slice of cake, but I'll have to run on the treadmill 20 more minutes. And so I think, wow, that's a mixed up motivation. You know, what do you want to be? So we have all kinds of motivations. And if we sit here in this room today, we can think about the things we do and ask ourselves the question whether it's a sin or whether it's not, whether it is living righteously or not. The question becomes, why? Yes. Why do you do the things that you do? Dr. Gooch, a professor at The Ohio State University, said this. He said that if you are poor, consider what makes you poor. I think that that's an appropriate statement, because if we sit and we really think about whatever it is we do in life, those things that are draining us, those things that make us poor, those things that make us wealthy, those things that life brings to us, why do we act like we act? What is our motivation? Well, some years ago, my daughter asked me a question. And she asked me the question of heaven, you know, going to heaven. And my wife and I, we were sitting and we were talking about going to heaven. And one of the things that most people say is that you want to make sure not to go to hell. And there are a lot of people who their motivation toward heaven is simply not to go to hell. You say, you know, I don't want to burn forever. I want to go to heaven. And I said that that is an inappropriate response in terms of why one wants to go to heaven. Because, just let me analyze that statement for a moment, just so you understand it. How would you feel if the person who you love the most in the world, just say for instance it's your child, and so Brother Maurice, your child says to you, I want to spend time with you because I don't want to spend time with Mama. That doesn't say that that person likes you. It says that you just happen to be better than the other choice that I have. I think in our country right now, we have that going on in our electoral politics. People are saying, I just rather you and not them. Well, that's not a compliment when somebody says that the other choice is just so bad, I'd rather your cooking because their cooking is worse. And so to say to God, I want to come to heaven because I don't want to go to hell is not the way to honor God.
That's right.
And so what God wants from us is the type of motivation that is not a negative motivation that pushes us toward Him. God wants the kind of connection and relationship that comes because we're genuinely happy because of who God is. Am I talking right? Can you follow me here? It is not about saying, God, I want you because the devil is so bad. It is not about saying, I'm embracing you, God, because you can give me something. It is about recognizing that what God has already done has been so wonderful, so sweet, so magnificent, so wonderful, so grand, that just for that, I love you, God. I love you, God, because you created me. I love you because you've redeemed me. I love you because you've saved me. I love you because I know that my breath, every breath that I take is because of you. I love you, God, just because of who you are. Yes. What you've done for me, what you've done to me, all of those things in my mind when I think about you. And so we ought to be motivated by His throne. Motivated by the fact that He is the Lord. Motivated by the fact that He is the person that makes us all a part of the royal priesthood. I think that we can see this in chapter 7, and so lest I keep you too long on this wonderful Mother's Day as you try to beat the traffic. Some of you only came to Liberty Hill because you knew that you would be out of here soon enough to beat the crowd for lunch. So I don't want to disappoint you. Chapter 7, verse 9. It says this, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne. We ought to realize that to be motivated by the throne is to be multinational. And by the way, that line there, you don't need it. There's only one word, multinational, we gave it to you. For all of us, we must recognize that this is not about being separated, but it is about being together. The problem with the church still remains that we are still highly segregated. Martin Luther King said that one of the most segregated hours in America is 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Unfortunately, as we look around churches across the country, there are some who are beginning to integrate and so on and so forth, but many of our churches are either black churches or white churches. Let's be honest, though, when it comes time for that final trump to sound, do you think that it's going to be a white section or a black section in heaven? Not too long ago, if you remember Ossie Davis, one of the characters that he writes about is Just Be Simple. And Just Be Simple questions whether or not racism will always be around. And he said that he felt like when he got to heaven, they were going to send him to the colored section. But I tell you today that if you ever look at the text, you realize that it is not about the separation of people. It is about the joining of people into the family of God. It is not about the color. It is not about the race. It is about our faith, our belief, and our commonness in Him. Now, I say that to say because I know that typically in a majority black church that we always say that it is not us, somebody else. Now, we can say we didn't create it, but we certainly can't say that we don't participate. All right. Because there are times when we are still participating in the racism. There are times when we are still mad at somebody, when we need to let it go. We need to, that's hard to say sometimes. Folks say, well, but they're still killing children in the street and so on and so forth. But there's still a God who has called us to love one another in spite of it. And to recognize that we're all family, and there will always be people who do the wrong thing. Yes. But the question is, are we willing to do the right thing and recognize that we have family who are all a part of the body of Christ, whether they're white or black or Chinese or Chin or African, whatever. Whoever those people are that you don't like, Christ said to take in the stranger. Those people are the people who we need to unite with and who we need to share in the body of Christ. Yes. Now, Deacon Palmer can tell you, I'm one of those people who gets bothered by everybody. But I recognize to fully understand and to be a part of what God is calling us to do, that I have to suppress that.
Yes.
And be motivated by the throne.
Yes.
When I'm motivated by the throne and the work that he does, then that means I want to include rather than exclude.
That's right.
Look at verse 9. So it says that these multitudes of people will come together. They were before the throne, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. We need to have some pure garment fashion. We need to have some pure garment fashion. The church oftentimes is a very fashionable place. We love our fashion. And we've got to dress up and we've got to be sharp on Sunday. And that's just kind of how we've done it for many years. Now, many congregations are kind of doing other things. You walk into a church like this one and you see people dressed in all different kinds of ways on Sunday morning. Now, I will tell you that Liberty Hill is still somewhat different, because there are some places that I still go, and I tell you, if you don't have on a vest and a tie, you'll feel very out of place. And you feel like you don't belong here. And they will look at you like you don't belong here either. And over the years, I think Liberty Hill has become a place where it doesn't make any difference. If you're dressed way up, you can wear a hat and gloves here if you want to. You can put on patent leather shoes and come in with a tiara if you want to. Or otherwise, you can put on a pair of shorts, and as long as you're respectful. I think it was years ago, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, that I said, the only question I have for you is when you look in the mirror before you leave Sunday, leave your house on Sunday, is ask would Jesus approve. And if Jesus would approve of what you got on, then come on to church. The fact is, sometimes we're so bothered with our outer appearance.
Yes.
That's what we're doing now. We're doing all of the exercising. We're going to the gym. We're paying all of the fees because we got to look good. You got to have your body all toned up. You got to have muscles and all this kind of thing. And sometimes what happens is we look so good on the outside, but we look so bad on the inside. We need some pure fashion. We need some garments that are not about look at me, some garments that are about the purity of the Lamb who has cleansed us. To be able to walk around and not talk about what I look like or how I have some perception of myself, but to look like he who has saved me, to know that I'm pure because I've been washed in the blood of the Lamb.
Yes.
The other thing that it does is it takes this whole idea of being multinational and it brings us into the same family. It causes us to realize that we have a uniform, if you will. It causes us to realize that there's a certain demeanor, a certain stature that all of us need to have. And what we recognize in this particular text in verse 9 is that it not only says that they were clothed in white, it says before the Lamb clothed in white robes and palms in their hand. They were fashionable for the Lamb. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on being able to put forward an outward appearance that is worthy of God. An inward appearance that affects that outward appearance, to say that there is love in my heart and purity. I'm not dressed up just to be a mess at the church. But there's something different on the inside. There's a whole lot of folks that look good, but they're not good for it. 9 says that they are raising their palms, or they have palms in their hands. And what that symbolizes, it symbolizes the victory that they had. Because they realize that here we are, we're one family, cleansed by the blood. They realize that we're all dressed in these white robes, that we've been clothed by God. But then they realize that we can bring the palm in our hand. This palm represents the fact that we have the victory. You see, one of the reasons that the palm tree, and I won't go into that in this particular sermon, but if you ever come to a Bible study where we talk about the palm tree, you will recognize that the palm tree is a great symbol of faith. It is a symbol of faith. One of the reasons, and I'll point out to you just as a surface kind of thing, is have you ever noticed where palm trees are? We don't have any palm trees in Columbus. Columbus doesn't get the kind of weather that needs a palm tree. But no sooner as you get out toward Florida, the Bahamas, all of those warm places, California, you go out toward St. Croix and those kind of places. You look up and you're going to see some palm trees. One of the reasons that you'll see those palm trees and you won't see many other types of trees is because that palm tree is ready to weather the storm. A palm tree is a victorious kind of tree. You hear me? A palm tree, the wind can blow real hard on it. The palm tree can, you see them when you see it on the news and they talk about hurricanes that come through and see that palm tree just bend on over. And that palm tree can bend one way and bend the other. And when the storm is over, houses will be floating by. People will be out of homes, but then palm trees will still be saying, here I am. I came through the storm. A palm tree has great victory in it. There's a lot of reasons why, but that's one of the things. Yeah. See, all of us, if we're motivated by the throne, we ought to realize that there's nothing that's greater than your Savior that's in you. Yeah. There's no problem bigger than him. You don't have to worry about being defeated. You can realize that you can weather the storm. Yeah. All you got to do is hold on. I had a cousin some years ago. She was living in California with my uncle. And there was an earthquake that came through. When the earthquake came through, she got all beat up and bruised up. My uncle at that time was nearly 80 years old. He was just fine. And so when they asked him, said, well, what happened to her? He said she tried to get up. And she was walking around and stuff was falling into her. He said, as a Californian, I knew what to do. I just stayed in the bed and held on. See, sometimes when everything is going wrong around you, you just need to stay and hold on. See, Sister Morel, sometimes some storms are going to come in your life and some problems and situations will come towards you, but you got to be planted deeply and just sway with the tide and the wind and so on and so forth, and victory shall come. So they were clothed in the right things. They had these in the hand, but then look at 10. It says, and cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. You know what we ought to be willing to do when we're motivated by his throne? We ought to be willing to shout just thinking about God.
Amen.
You know, when you're just thinking about God. See, there's some things that when you think about them, you feel good. Yeah. You feel real good when you think about it. When those fresh new lovers just meet, they'll feel good when they think about the other person. If you like me and you like eating, then when you think about your favorite food, your favorite kind of cake, you just feel good when you think about it. Yeah. There are just certain things that make you feel good. And you know, when we think about God and all he's done for us, then the thinking about God should make us feel better than any pound cake. It ought to make us feel better than any person. Yeah. That's why in the same conversation when we were talking about this motivation toward heaven, one of the things I said, Brother Danny Fisher, is I said that not only should we want to go to heaven just because of who God is, not because we don't want to go to hell, but we also should want to go to heaven because of God and nobody else. Yeah. See, I've heard people say, you know what, I can't wait to get to heaven and see my grandma again. I can't wait to get to heaven to see my husband again. I can't wait to get to heaven to see somebody. How in the world, how dare you get so excited about seeing grandma when God will be there? Yeah. I loved my grandmother, loved my father, and so on and so forth. The list goes on of the people who have left me here on the earth. But I'm not as so excited about seeing them as I am God. When I get there, I want to see God. I don't want to see anybody else. If you really love God, let's talk about really loving God, then that means that you can't wait. You're sitting on the edge of your seat to see the one who made us, the one who saved us, the one who has sponsored us to be there. I don't have time for grandma, because grandma ain't paying for me to be in heaven. His blood paid for me to be there. You might not like it, but it was the fact that he was hung on the cross that paid me to be there. It's the fact that God clothed himself in a human body and dropped himself down on heaven, on earth, and took on all of our sins. That is the reason that we get to go to heaven. It is because he loved us when we couldn't love ourselves. He loved us in spite of our sin and our separation. He loved us in spite of our bad attitudes and our hatred. He has loved us. Yes, he has. And so how I'm going to get to heaven and say, God, I don't want to see you. I'm trying to look for my grandmother. And so our motivation ought to be to see God. Yes, yes. That's what it's all about. That's the throne that makes us happy, is to just think about him. Because he is the center of heaven. Yes. He is the one that we want to see. And by the way, just a side note, I don't want to make none of y'all mad, so don't send me no letters. Sometimes you might get there, decide to look for grandma, and they tell you if you want to see her. So anyway, verse 11 says this. And all the angels stood round about the throne and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces and worshiped God. See, the motivation ought to be to realize that even the angels who've been there longer than us, even they realize that you got to worship God. That's why they're there. They're there to worship him because he's worthy. And so they've fallen on their face to worship God. This tells us this is the testimony that we get even from the angels, to say that he's worthy. He's a worthy boss. He's a worthy leader. He's a worthy creator. He's the one who's been here, and we've been here with him, and we like being here. And so they've fallen down on their faces to worship God. Look at verse 12. It says, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. We need to acknowledge the truth. That's what this word amen means. It's really saying that this is the truth. The truth is that there's blessings and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might. This is our God, and that's the truth. All of these other folk who are telling you that they got power and that they can do this and that for you, there's no power there. The truth is that Jesus is the one who's died for us. The truth is God is the one who has created us. The truth is what we must acknowledge when we're motivated by the throne. When we're motivated by the throne, we can unseat all other things that are thrown in our life, because we unseat them by the truth. We begin to recognize that no matter what it is that you've been motivated by, no matter what it is that you've allowed to take control in your life, that thing will never outlast God. So if you're motivated by money, it won't outlast God. Economies will fail. If you're motivated by some person, because I'm in love with them, people fade away. If you're motivated by your car, it shall rust. If you're motivated by your clothes, the moth will eat it up. God will outlast any other motivation that you might have. And so the truth is that our honor and glory ought to be toward him. And so I've told you that motivated by the throne, we need to realize that it is inclusive, it is multinational. We need to be purely garment fashioned. We need to recognize that we need to remember victory. They were waving their palm branches, remembering that Jesus had come triumphantly into to his kingdom, as he said he would establish the kingdom. We need to shout just because we're thinking about God. We need to recognize that even the angels worshiped him. We need to acknowledge truth. But then I need to leave you with this. Look at verses 13 through 15. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes? And whence come they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. When you're motivated by the throne and you realize that God has been so good to you, then you got to know this. You got to know this. What you got to know, Brother Jennings, is that these folk who were there, he wanted to know, who are they? Why are they there? Why are they around the throne? The answer comes back and said, look, the reason they're around the throne is because they realize that they've been through some things. Yes. They realize they've been through some storms and some situations. They've gone through some tribulation. They've been persecuted and they've been hurt. They've been harmed. They've gone through some things. But they realize that all of the stuff they went through, they realize who delivered them from their situations. They realize that he is God. And so there they are at the throne day and night. They're worshiping him because of all that he has done for them. Well, Brother Ethan Fisher, I wish I had just a few people in this church this morning who realizes that they've gone through some things. But maybe you're wondering, when will it end? Still trying to figure out, why am I going through this and that? Why do the troubles and the tribulations, Sister Latanga, come my way? But what you got to know is this. You got to know that out of all of the stuff that we go through, that some glad morning we shall be delivered. I may not know everything, but the writer says that I don't know all of the things that are going to happen, but I know this, that someday we shall be like him. And so out of all that you are going through and all that you are sad about, you watch the news and you look at your bank account and you think about your relationship, all I got to tell you this morning is keep on holding on. Because someday I heard some folks say that they were going to gather around the throne. As a matter of fact, Deacon Johnson talks about, I want to be at the meeting when we meet around the throne. Well, you see what happens when you continue to hold on through the trial and the tribulation of life. When you continue to suffer the hurt, the harm, and the danger, someday we'll be surrounding the throne and none of this will even matter. So you got to know this. You got to know the troubles and trials will come, but he shall lead us to victory in the end.
Amen.